Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Top of the List. Welcome to our top 5 movies of 2020 here on Top of the List. A much anticipated year of films that we didn't get a lot of the films we were supposed to, right, Ryan?
Yeah, that is definitely the truth.
And, whether or not we had a lot of disappointments this year, there were some gems and some bright spots and some films that certainly, I don't know about you, but helped me get through this hard time.
Yeah, and I think we definitely both had to change our focus on films from, the huge blockbuster cinema that we would have loved to have gone and seen in IMAX. That wasn't the case for most of this year. So we had to change our expectations a little bit with our favorite films from things that, we'd like to have seen in that theatrical release to something that was better formatted for, watching in a home theater system as opposed to the big screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should just get started off with how we decided here. We went through the list of films released on, we went on Wikipedia and we counted everything from January to December, and we just picked out the ones we have seen. So by no means have we seen all the films it released in 2020, but these were the top 5 films we saw in 2020, and this is as of December 31st, right? So if going into 2021, we might go back and see some films that were released in 2020 that would have been on our top 5, but we haven't seen those movies yet. So These are the movies we have seen so far that were released in 21, and these are our favorites. So I think we should start off with RB. He's the talent on the show. He has the important top 5 here. So start with 5 and count down to your number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start it off actually with one that was released rather recently. This was Borat, subsequent movie film. Of course, the sequel to Sacha Baron Cohen's satire Borat. This was a film that I felt that America needed going through COVID, the crisis. Very pertinent to today's time. I don't want to say too much about the film, but anyone who did watch it knows exactly what I'm talking about. Big fan of this film, so that comes in at number 5 for me. Number 4 would be Disney Pixar's Onward. This was probably the first film that I watched with the start of quarantine. Really feel-good film. I know you saw this one as well, Dom. Heartfelt film. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and to me, that was really the first one where I was like, okay, they could pull off these theatrical releases on Disney Plus where you could watch at home.
Right, yeah, and that was really the first one, if I'm not mistaken, with the pandemic starting, with the release of that, and then we got The Invisible Man later on, as well as some other films that were released for at home as well as in the theater, depending on who stayed open at that time.
And Onward, as far as that goes, did not make my top 5. That one would probably be like 6 or 7 for me, but definitely I'd say an honorable mention for my list.
Well, as the viewers know, you and I like different styles of films. You're a more serious, almost psychological thriller fan. I go for the heartfelt or the comedies, as you saw with my first 2. So I think that makes sense. That just misses your list, especially because some of the films that you saw that I opted out of are going to make your list. I think there's probably going to be more overlap of stuff that you chose on my list and stuff that you chose for your list for me.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, number 4, Onward. Number 3, a big fan of this one. I think it was met with mixed reviews. We talked about it a little bit in our Wonder Woman 1984 review. Birds of Prey. This was the first film we saw in 2020, or at least that I saw in the theaters in 2020 before COVID or coronavirus was a word in many of our vocabularies. Loved this film. Loved Margot Robbie in it. Loved the ensemble cast as well, her fellow Birds of Prey. Awesome cast, awesome story, great acting. Really loved this movie. Couldn't speak more highly of it. Especially, being a DC Extended Universe film, it was sort of done, almost as a sequel to Suicide Squad, which I despised. I know you said it was all right, but seeing, a Harley Quinn film bounce back from Suicide Squad, I loved this film. So that comes in right at number 3 for me.
That's kind of one of my honorable mentions too. Could be 6 or 7 on my list as well. And, I'm a huge superhero fan. That one really, I almost put at number 5 on my list. I really enjoyed Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey, for me, was proof that DC still has a shot at doing something that Marvel hasn't had, without better lack of a term, the balls to do yet. An ensemble film with an all-female cast versus what they have come out and said as Ewan McGregor had playing Black Mask, he is a gay villain. They've said that, and they don't really overtly say it in the movie, but the director has noted that, and I thought that they really broke some boundaries there, and it was a fun movie.
Oh, extremely! Yes, really enjoyed this one. In the theaters as well. Really a film that I think I wouldn't have rated as highly if I didn't see it in the theaters and watched it at home. But this was a great movie theater experience. All right, so that brings me to my top two. Number two, Netflix release, The Trial of the Chicago 7. You may remember our review from that film. We were both huge fans of this film. Once again, a brilliant ensemble performance. Sacha Baron Cohen was brilliant in it, as well as Eddie Redmayne, correct?
Yeah, Eddie Redmayne. Few other great actors in that one. It's a large ensemble. You keep talking about it. Let me look up the cast.
Yeah, no, just another film for other reasons very pertinent to today's times. Especially being released right around the election, and I thought just masterfully done, masterfully acted. As we talked about in the review, I'm a huge fan of courtroom thrillers. Dom and I both huge fans of 12 Angry Men. Of course, we also talked about Extremely Evil, Shockingly Wicked, and Vile. There's some great courtroom sequences in that. But I thought this one was extremely, extremely well done. And probably if we're classifying, screenplays or, motion pictures, I think this would be number one. But of course, the top of my list for 2020, as it is, I'm sure, for a lot of people, the July 4th release of Hamilton. I wasn't sure if I was going to consider this one on my list, but Dom and I actually rewatched it a couple nights ago, and he brought up a great point that I had never even thought about, that this screenplay, this is a screenplay. You look at the directorial choices and the cinematography. I did have the pleasure to see Hamilton live on stage. It's different than seeing it on stage. There are visual close-ups of the actors. It's not just as if it's one stationary camera from a seat in the theater. And I think that does make it its own film, separate from a filmed recording of the musical. So I really love this one. That's the top of my list for 2020.
If I'm not mistaken, the only 10 out of 10 that you gave in 2020 to a film released in 2020. Not sure if you gave Chicago 7 to 10.
I may have given Chicago 7 to 10. If I did not, it was in the 9.5 range.
Yeah,
but definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. This is a film for me that brought a lot of joy in a rather unpleasant 2020, for lack of a better term. But no, really enjoy Hamilton. I had enjoyed the music from it and the musical before this film, but once again, was able to, be there for a lot of people who hadn't seen it or had seen it here in a time where we were all kind of stuck.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. I love the picks you made for your list, and I wanted to make mine about some of the other movies that I know you haven't seen quite a few of these, and I wanted to let you know what I thought about them. So, didn't get a chance to do a lot of reviews of these ones as well, like you mentioned with, what's it called, the Borat film.
Right, yes.
And a few others as well. Onward, we never did a full review of. Yep. But, yeah, that's a great list. So, before I go into my top five, I just want to reiterate a movie that we did a review of earlier in the year. And I watched it a second time with my dad, because he hadn't seen it, and I had seen it the first time to do the review with you. But I watched it the second time, and I want to raise my score from earlier on in the year, because upon second viewing, I enjoyed this movie even more.
Okay.
Enola Holmes, starring Millie Bobby Brown. Ryan wasn't a big fan of it. For me, I think, what'd you give it, like a 6.5 or a 7?
I think I gave it around a 7.5. It was a good film, but there wasn't anything to me that was great about this film. This was definitely a Netflix original movie, and would have been, to me, if I went to the movie theaters to see this, I would have been disappointed walking out. But it was a good film for a Netflix original film.
And the reason I wanted to bring it up is one thing we don't really always bring up in our show is, we talk about, 7 is usually that safe bet where you could rewatch it again, right? 8 is, a film you and I would suggest is you could watch it over and over and over again.
Absolutely, yeah.
So for me, I think I gave it a 7.5. We gave it like the same score or something like that. I want to put mine, raise it up to the 8 territory, because after watching it a second time, I think I could watch this one again and again and again. And upon first viewing, I didn't think that, but after watching it the second time, I appreciated the film even more. And like we talked about in the review, how it was dark. I appreciated that on second viewing, that it was more adult. I didn't realize that there's a point where, you know, Millie Bobby Brown almost gets drowned to death.
Yeah.
And then in the next scene, her legs are like covered in blood and like she's tending to her wounds. I was like, oh, crazy. This is like an action movie at some points, you know, where you see the cold-hearted hero, like, you know, healing themselves after a gigantic battle. And I was like, wow, okay, this is really great. And, you know, there was a great twist at the end with the grandmother being the one all along. And
spoilers, by the way.
yeah, well, I mean, people have probably already seen it by now. But yeah, I just wanted to raise my score to 8 out of 10 on that one. And definitely my honorable mention for the year.
Okay.
I don't think it got enough love is my reasoning.
I mean, I disagree with you. Yes, they had some dark turns, but to me, this was still a family movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may have been why I didn't enjoy it was, you know, you think of Sherlock Holmes, which is done in the vein of, and of course, Enola Holmes were, I believe, young adult novels before they made this into a film. You know, the Sherlock Holmes series, Arthur Conan Doyle, I mean, they are dark. They are extremely dark. And I just think if you're going to do something in the vein of that, you can't sort of child it down. I felt the same way about Robert Downey Jr.'s. I was not a fan of those Sherlock Holmes, but of course, I had grown up watching with my dad, VHS, you know, black and white, Sherlock Holmes and the Hounds of Baskerville or the Howling Mummy. My dad and I used to watch those together, and to me, those are more serious. You know, Sherlock Holmes is not something that's campy or funny, and I thought they went a little bit, you know, family for this one.
And that's kind of the reason why I wanted to give it a shout, is because if more people watch this one, I think they can make a really awesome sequel of this one. If they go just a little darker, fully embrace that, you know, darker tone, that more serious tone, like with still the jokes. I still like a lot of the jokes in this one. But yeah, I'm hyped to see if they could do a great sequel to this one, because they have said they are going to try to make a sequel. So I'm excited for that. So anyways, I rambled on too long about that one. But number 5 here, I have my list on my phone. I need to double check real quick. But this one was hard for me to put in number 5. Like I said, I kind of wanted to put Birds of Prey here, kind of wanted to put Onward here. But in the end, I had to stick true to something genuinely original and something I didn't expect, something that hit me off guard, and that is number 5 for 2020, The Invisible Man.
Okay.
This is one of those films that was supposed to be in the dark universe after The Mummy, the new reboot of The Mummy flopped. They said, oh, well, we're going to make a Wolfman movie, which they are, and they were going to make a new Frankenstein movie and all these other movies. This was supposed to be the first one connecting all the dots. They, you know, after The Mummy flop, they said, no way, we're going to just make a great film. And that's what I respected most about The Invisible Man. This gentleman that directed, I can't look up his name right now, but he also directed Upgrade, another great film, action film, a little too gory for my taste, but this film was The Invisible Man. His next film was a major improvement in every way. I guess I'm going to say what my score would have been if I had reviewed it. It was kind of the reason I wanted to start this show with you, is because I watched it and I told you, I was like, yeah, if I were to give it a score, it'd be 9 out of 10. And that's my score. I stick by that. The reason I gave it 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10, 9.5 is the ending kind of struck me a little wrong. Did you see the?
I did not see The Invisible Man. I'm not, viewers know I delved a little bit into horror this year during Halloween. You know, we watched the original Halloween, and then as well watched The Shining, but that's about it. Dipped my toes a little bit in the horror film genre, but it's definitely not for me. So I did not watch the Invisible Man, especially because it wasn't a free release, correct? It was something that you had to purchase pay-per-view, correct?
Right, it's purchased pay-per-view, watched it with my mom and dad, and it is extremely suspenseful, incredibly acted by all the cast, and I got to shout out the direction. Some of the best sequences where I didn't know if they could pull it off with a character that's invisible.
Right.
Like, would that just take away from the suspense? The director somehow pulled off a way to add even more suspense whenever there's someone you can't see who's attacking this woman,
right.
And that adds so much intensity to the film, and I really appreciated that. Especially, I'm not going to spoil it for you, Ryan, if you ever do check it out, but a sequence in a hospital where the main character is trying to escape a hospital, and she's walking down this hallway, and the Invisible Man is murdering police guards, and they think that she is responsible for it. But because they can't see him murdering, they think it's her. So that was such an incredible sequence. I had to shout that one out. Number 4, I'm going to go with a film we already talked about. I'm not going to go too much in depth on it. Trial of the Chicago 7. Also gave that a 9 out of 10 in our review. Did like it a little bit more than Invisible Man. That's why it sits at number 4. Mostly because Aaron Sorkin, the director and screenwriter of this film, he is one of the best screenwriters of all time, everybody. I mean, he has made some fantastic films out there. A Few Good Men, another Aaron Sorkin film that I need to get you to watch, which you will love that film. But yeah, a lot of great Aaron Sorkin films out here. And this is just another great one in his catalog. And I got to give a shout out in this one. I'm going to butcher his name, but Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was, as Bobby Seale, was phenomenal. I think he deserves some sort of Oscar praise.
Yeah, without a doubt. He was incredible in this film. And especially for a part, you know, historically, he was not a member of, you know, what was considered the Chicago 7. And, you know, that was what was so pertinent about this film and why it came out at this time, because it did deal with, you know, a racially heavy topic that needed to be discussed today. And, you know, something that, you know, the Chicago 7, something that isn't taught in history books today. I had no idea what that was until I watched that film. You know, of course, I think our parents may have, or grandparents, from remembering it being covered. But yeah, I agree, definitely. He was fantastic in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely had to put this film on my top 5 of 2020. So that sits at number 4. And then we get to a film that Ryan hasn't seen. And I really wanted to see it because this film is so up your alley, dude. And it has one of my favorite actors. I don't know how you feel about Hugh Jackman, but definitely love Hugh Jackman in a lot of films. This is his second best performance for me. Of course, I'm talking about the film. It sits at number 3, Bad Education, released on HBO. You know, another would have been in theaters, but it was released on HBO. You know, I guess it was an HBO original film, so I'm not really sure how they would have released it if it weren't for COVID. But man, this movie blew me away. And if you guys out there don't know, I'm aspiring to be a teacher, and this film has to do with the inner workings of a high school superintendent and a vice principal and all the stuff that goes with that. And man, it is a hard-hitting mystery, suspense, thriller. Not sure if you could call it a thriller, but it's more of like, it's like a combination of a biopic. It's hard to
Is it a true story?
It's a true story. That's what is really amazing about it.
This is one that I wanted to watch. Of course, I didn't have HBO Go. Is that correct?
HBO, yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that you had given me later on, but just didn't get around to watching it. But that's something, that I would definitely want to see. That's right up my alley.
Yeah, and Hugh Jackman is phenomenal in it, and the other actors in the movie are also phenomenal. Just a few hitches there. If I were to give it a score, I would probably say 9.5. This is where I'm moving up to 9.5. This is sitting at number 3. And it's Hugh Jackman's second best performance. I'm going to go on record here, guys, and say Hugh Jackman's best performance is in Logan, which I think you can see.
I knew you were going to say that.
And I can't wait till Ryan sees that one. I have a feeling you're going to agree with me.
Well, we're going to stay tuned. One of the things we want to do in 2021, I've seen a lot of superhero movies, but I've never seen any of the X-Men films. So now that they're all on Disney Plus, that's something that's coming your way, fans. We'll do X-Men reviews once we sit down, and now that we're, here in the same apartment, able to watch all of them together, we'll definitely be coming at you with that soon.
Yeah. Absolutely. And number 3, Bad Education, guys. Go check it out. 9.5 out of 10. Didn't get to review it, but that's what my score would be. Then that brings me to number 2, and it's a film we have shared. And it's, to me, I was thinking about putting this at number 5 because, like you mentioned, it's Hamilton. It's not really a movie per se, but it just hit me so hard. I love the emotional impact. And, what makes this number 2 on my list is it brought you and me closer because we can relate to the music. I mean, we were going on a road trip recently, and you and I, we listened to the whole soundtrack on the way down there. And, we're about to make dinner, and we're probably going to listen to the soundtrack again. We love listening to music, and we love the historical aspect of it, and the meaning behind it is so phenomenal. I mean, we just recently watched it, as you mentioned before, and we had a great conversation about, Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton and, the fates, how their fates were intertwined, and, how Alexander Hamilton really did kind of, F them over, and lots of great discussions you could have about this one that I really loved. And the directing is phenomenal. The Disney Plus 4K presentation, I didn't expect, I watched it in 1080p on my old TV when it first came out, and I rewatched it again with you, Ryan, in 4K Dolby Vision. And I mean, you said to yourself, you can tell that some of these actors have bad teeth. That's how amazing it looks. And yeah, the 4K presentation is phenomenal. And yeah, Hamilton also a 9.5 out of 10 in my book. But you know, my top two, it's almost a 10 out of 10. You know, it's like there's just like you said, there's like one number that kind of feels out of place. The one where he's in the storm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my markdown a little bit.
For sure.
But that gets me to my number one movie of 2020. Everybody, another film Ryan hasn't seen, but this movie blew me away for every single second. It is Run, which it came out on Hulu. It's from Anish Chaganty, I think is his last name. And he directed a film, his first film he directed, and it's kind of an inspiring story about this director. He finally was able to make Searching, the film with John Cho. He loses his daughter. Yeah. That film was really unique. I probably would almost have given that one a 10 out of 10 when it came out. Shot entirely from webcam perspective, or like, it's really insane the way that he got all these aspects of, like, you know, security camera footage and stuff like that. And it's so intense. And the ending, I mean, like, there's this one point where he's almost about to, like, track down his daughter, and like the music starts pounding, and I remember watching it in theaters. This is Searching, of course, and I was crying. It was so powerful. Like, I was like, wow, I'm actually crying in the theater. I'm kind of embarrassed, but like, it was so amazing. Like, I really loved Searching, and I wondered, would he be able to reach that level of intensity again? Is this guy the new Alfred Hitchcock? And in my book, yes, 100%. This is the guy to be watching. Out of, you know, I have a lot of favorite directors out there: Mike Flanagan, Denis Villeneuve, lots of great directors out there, new, you know, Christopher Nolan. But this guy is just quickly rising to my number one, you know, director. Like, he is so phenomenal. He's the new Alfred Hitchcock, and Run is further proof of it. This film reminded me a lot of Rear Window in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, I got that vibe definitely from the trailers, and this is one that we're going to probably watch together very soon, and probably get you a review, because this is one that I was really looking forward to seeing. Of course, I'm a huge Sarah Paulson fan. I think she's brilliant.
Phenomenal.
Really excited to see her in this movie, and really a fan of the idea. Yeah, and Rear Window was definitely the vibes I was getting when I saw the trailers. So I like the Hitchcock analogy. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. So yeah, this is one that we'll definitely be watching together soon, and probably bringing you a review.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, number one on my list. I don't know if I would give it a 10 out of 10, because, you know, there's always a nitpick that you can get, but maybe upon second viewing, I'll figure out what the score is. But definitely my number one movie of 2020, Run. And is there any other honorable mentions you wanted to make, Ryan?
I mean, I had a lot. There were a lot of, you know, cheesy comedies, which I'm a huge fan of, on Netflix. I mean, some that come to mind, Desperados, which was, I love Lamorne Morris and Nassim Pedrad, of course. We're back working together after working together in New Girl, which is one of my favorite television shows, television sitcoms. So I like Desperados. I was a big fan of Fantasy Island as well. I know both of these movies got completely destroyed by critics, but Fantasy Island was another one that I really enjoyed, a Blumhouse picture. Of course, based off of the Ricardo Montalban TV show from the 70s. I really liked this one, thought there were some original plays on that TV show. So I like that. Holiday, you know, another cheesy comedy. There were just a bunch of those this year that I really enjoyed, as well as there was another one I liked, The Way Back. Of course, you know, Dom talked about being a teacher. I'm a SID, sports information director. So anything about sports, I'm locked in. This looked like a movie that was for me. You know, basketball, the center of it. I really liked it. This was just one of those films that I felt was done in the vein of a based on a true story biopic that I really wanted to be a true story that wasn't. But yeah, enjoyed that one as well. And then, of course, when you're talking about sport films, Safety, which we haven't gotten a chance to watch yet, but this one is another one that will be coming to you with a review very soon. Of course, Safety, the Disney Plus film, true story about a Clemson football player who has to, you know, be a college student, balance football, being a college student, and he becomes a foster parent of his 9-year-old younger brother. So really looking forward to that one as well.
All right, and
how about you? Yeah.
I think that's about it as far as, you know, like I said, Onward and Birds of Prey are kind of my, and Enola Holmes, my honorable mentions. The Devil All the Time. I don't know if I'd ever watch it again.
Yeah.
But that was certainly a movie that I thought was going for something, and it gave me another great Robert Pattinson performance, which I could appreciate.
It was, I would definitely use interesting or intriguing as my word to describe that one, but I don't know if I could give it great. It was good, okay, somewhere in that 6 or 7 range. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. Even now, thinking back on it, I may drop that to a 6.5. It wasn't for me. Definitely my kind of movie, but I don't know. It just didn't get there for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And one that you didn't check out, Ryan, but one I watched in the theme of Halloween, because I did want to check out the Blumhouse collection.
Right, yes.
Did not get to watch all 4 of them, but the one I needed to watch because Sydney Sweeney was in it. I'm a huge fan of her. She was in, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood briefly. She was in a bunch of other shows. Handmaid's Tale was like her big break. But I wanted to see what she could do in a feature film of her own where she's the main character. Nocturne. I was expecting more. It's kind of a Black Swan-esque story.
Right, yeah.
Black Swan is an infinitely better film, but this one was not bad. It was, a good film. I'd probably give it a 6.5 or a 7. Definitely some plot hole-ish things that I've found. But the one standout thing in this one for me was, of course, the music was cool. There's one song played over and over and over that's really haunting. And I got to give a shout out to the final shot of this film is up there for, the rest of the film doesn't compare, but the final shot of this film might be my favorite final shot of the movie of the year. Really great final shot in that movie, but the rest of the movie doesn't compare. So it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Shout out to Nocturne. Check that one out. I think it might be the best of the Blumhouse collection.
All right, so I think that'll wrap it up for us. We do have some exciting stuff coming for you guys, as we creep into the new year. Of course, as you heard, we're going to do a run review. We're going to do a safety review, Bad Education as well, most likely. We also probably will be coming back at you tomorrow with our top 5 TV shows of 2020. Really excited to shoot that one as well. And then, of course, Cobra Kai premieres at midnight tonight, January 1st. So we're going to watch through that as fast as we can and bring you a review of Cobra Kai Season 3. Of course, you can always go back and watch our reviews of Cobra Kai Seasons 1 and 2, which we both absolutely love. We had some awesome cliffhangers left off in the end of Season 2, so really excited to see what they do with Season 3. And then all sorts, of new content coming for 2021 now that we're both up here in the Bay Area at Top of the List headquarters. Looking forward to getting reviews out to you quicker, watching movies together as they debut. So stay tuned for that. We wish you all a very healthy, safe 2021, and hope that you made it through 2020 all right, unscathed, and thanks for your viewership all year. Dom, you want to take us out?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dom. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at DomGonzalez48. You can follow Ryan on Instagram at RB_the_SID. And you can follow him on Twitter at RBWithTheCall. Of course, give this a video a like if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below. What did we miss out on in 2020? Was there a film we didn't watch yet that you want us to review that came out in 2020? What's your favorite film of 2020? Let us know in the comments. And of course, give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of that. We're appreciative of wherever you want to watch our show or listen to our show. And of course, Happy New Year to you all, and keep an eye out for a bonus episode coming at you guys very shortly.